It was supposed to be an ordinary night shift at a quiet Seattle coffee shop. But then he walked in, the man in the black coat who never ordered, never blinked, and always sat facing the door. Night after night, he appeared at the same time, same table, staring into nothing. The lights would flicker, the clock would stop, and the smell of burnt coffee turned into something foul like sulfur and smoke. When I finally looked into his cup, it wasn't coffee inside, it was moving. This is not just another urban legend. This is the story of the devil in the coffee shop, where caffeine meets the supernatural, and no one leaves once he takes his seat. The smell of roasted coffee beans always brought comfort to everyone in town except Emily Carter. For her, that scent had started to mean fear. Emily, a 27-year-old barista from Portland, Oregon, loved her job at the small, independent cafe called The Roasted Bean. It wasn't just a workplace, it was her second home. She'd been working there for nearly 5 years, serving locals, college students, and the occasional tourist who stumbled in off the rainy streets. But one November morning, something changed. That day, she noticed a stranger sitting alone in the corner. He was tall, pale, and oddly dressed in old-fashioned black coat, gloves even though it wasn't that cold, and a hat that cast a shadow over his face. At first, she didn't think much of it. Portland was full of eccentric people, but when she approached his table to ask for his order, her stomach tightened. He didn't look up, he just whispered, "Americano, extra strong." That night she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that same shadowy figure sitting in the cafe corner. The next morning when she returned to work, her co-worker Jenna was already there, grinding beans and humming a tune. "Rough night?" Jenna asked, and Jenna chuckled. "Too much caffeine, probably." Emily didn't answer. She was scanning the cafe nervously. The corner where the stranger had sat was empty, but something about that spot made her uneasy, like the air there was heavier. Around noon, a customer screamed. A man had collapsed near the front door, his eyes rolled back and his body trembling violently. They called 911, but by the time the paramedics arrived, he was dead. The weird part, no one knew who he was. No ID, no phone, nothing. The cafe closed early that day. That night, as Emily sat in her apartment, scrolling through her phone to distract herself, she got a text from an unknown number. "Thanks for the coffee." Her heart froze. She didn't recognize the number, but she knew exactly who it was. She texted back, "Who is this?" No response, just 3 dots that appeared, then vanished. The next day at work, she found a single conch shell sitting on the counter. It looked old and worn, with strange carvings on its symbols she didn't understand. No one knew where it came from. Jenna swore she hadn't put it there. The manager hadn't seen it either. Emily picked it up and felt that same icy chill again. She dropped it instantly, the shell clattering onto the floor. When she looked up, she saw him, the same man standing outside the cafe window, watching her. This time his hat was gone. His face was pale and stretched, the eyes pitch black as if burned out from within. Emily stumbled backward, her heart pounding. Jenna turned to see what was wrong, but by the time she looked, the man was gone. That night, she told herself it was just stress. Maybe her mind was playing tricks. But at 3:14 a.m., her phone buzzed again. Another text. The coffee was bitter. "Just the way I like it." Attached was a photo of her sleeping in her bed. Emily screamed. She locked all the doors and called the police, but they didn't find anyone in or around her apartment. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling she was being watched. Days passed, but things got stranger. Every customer who sat in that corner of the cafe reported hearing whispers like a low hum beneath the music. A student claimed she heard her own name being called softly. A delivery driver refused to come in after seeing a man with no eyes reflected in the coffee machine. The cafe owner, Mr. Bennett, tried to brush it off. "Urban legends," he said. "Caffeine and paranoia." She started digging through the cafe's history, searching online for anything unusual. What she found made her blood run cold. Before, it was the Roasted Bean. The building had been a funeral home in the 1940s. There was a fire that killed several people, including a mortician accused of practicing dark rituals on corpses. His name was Elias Dorn. Emily stared at the old newspaper photo she found. Elias's pale face, his black eyes, his expressionless mouth. It was the same man. Emily couldn't breathe as she stared at the faded newspaper photo of Elias Dorn. Funeral home fire claims 5. Embalmer accused of ritualistic practices. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled down the article. Witnesses had claimed that before the fire, Dorn was often seen carrying an ornate conch shell that he said could call lost souls from the depths. The article described his obsession with preserving faces, literally preserving them. He believed that by taking a person's face at the moment of death, he could trap their spirit forever. Emily felt nauseous. That shell on the cafe counter right had the same markings as the one in the picture. Her phone buzzed again, making her jump. A text appeared from the unknown number. "You found me." Her hand shook as she typed, "What do you want?" A moment later, the reply came, "A refill." The next morning, Emily didn't want to go to work, but she couldn't explain why. The idea of quitting crossed her mind, but she needed the paycheck. Portland rent didn't pay itself. When she arrived, Jenna was already there, but she looked pale, like she hadn't slept either. "Emily, something's off," she said. "The cameras were recording last night. The security cameras." Jenna nodded and pulled her to the back office. On the screen, the footage showed the cafe empty until around 2:30 a.m., when the door slowly opened. A tall figure in a dark coat stepped in. No face, just a blur, as if the lens couldn't capture it. The man walked straight to the counter, placed the conch shell there, and turned toward the camera. States. Then the lights flickered and the screen went black. Emily gasped. "That's him." Jenna looked terrified. "Who? The man I served. The one from the corner." They showed the footage to Mr. Bennett, but when he played it back, the recording was clean. No intruder, no shell, just an empty cafe. He scolded them both. "Enough with the ghost stories," he said. But that night, Jenna didn't come to work the next day. She didn't answer calls or texts. By evening, the police found her car parked outside her apartment, but Jenna herself was gone. On the driver's seat lay another conch shell, slick with seawater. The cafe shut down for 2 days, but Emily couldn't rest. She went to Jenna's place, desperate for answers. The apartment was unlocked. Inside, everything was perfectly neat except for the bathroom mirror. Someone had written in condensation, "I drink what you pour." Her heart hammered as she backed out, nearly tripping over a photo frame. Inside was a picture of her and Jenna at work only. Jenna's face had been scratched out. Emily called 911 again, but the police found nothing helpful. No signs of struggle. Just that wet shell, which was later taken for analysis. That night, Emily dreamed of the ocean. She was standing knee-deep in dark water under a stormy sky. Something brushed her legs, something cold and slick. When she looked down, she saw dozens of faces floating beneath the surface. Their eyes open, mouths silently screaming. One of them was Jenna. She woke up screaming. When she went into work the next day, everything felt wrong. The coffee tasted metallic. The music glitched, playing backward for a few seconds before stopping completely. A new customer walked in, a man in a navy suit, middle-aged, polite. He smiled and said, "Americano, extra strong." She looked closely at the man's face. It was ordinary, normal even, but his hands were gloved. When she handed him the coffee, he smiled again. "Perfect," he whispered. As he walked away, she caught his reflection in the espresso machine, but it wasn't his reflection. It was Elias Dawn's face staring back at her. After that day, Emily started losing time. She'd zone out for hours at work, only to find coffee spilled, cups broken, and customers staring at her in confusion. One night she came home to find the lights flickering. The smell of coffee filled the air, strong, burnt, almost chemical. Her kitchen table was covered in conch shells, dozens of them. Her phone vibrated. A video message. She pressed play. It was footage from the cafe, but it wasn't from the camera set. It was from her phone camera. She was in the video, standing behind the counter, serving coffee to Elias. He smiled, leaned forward, and whispered something in her ear. Then she watched herself pick up a sharp knife from the counter and smile back at him. She dropped her phone in horror. "No, that's not real," she whispered. But when she looked down, she realized her hands were stained dark brown at first glance. But under the light, she saw it wasn't coffee. It was blood. Desperate, Emily went to the local library and pulled every record she could find about the funeral home. She found a single surviving journal entry from a firefighter who had responded to the 1947 blaze. "We found Dawn's body charred near the embalmer's room. His hands were clutching a shell. But when we pulled it away, the body turned to ash instantly." At the bottom of the page was a warning scrawled in red pencil. "The shell calls to those who pour the dead's drink." Emily didn't know what that meant until she remembered Elias's words in her dream. "I drink what you pour." It wasn't just coffee. It was a ritual. She realized she had been unknowingly serving him what he needed to return a vessel through which he could feed, reclaiming the faces of those who died inside the cafe. And Jenna had been the first sacrifice. She ran to the cafe one last time, determined to end it. She locked the doors and turned off all the lights. In the dark she could hear its low hum of whispers. They grew louder, filling her head, echoing her name over and over. "Emily, Emily." The smell of the sea filled the room. She looked down, the floor was wet, salt water pooling around her shoes. The conch shell sat on the counter, glowing faintly. She picked it up and shouted, "What do you want from me?" A voice answered, not from outside, but from inside the shell. "To wear your face." Emily screamed and threw the shell across the cafe floor. It hit the tiles and didn't break, it rang like a bell underwater. The lights exploded above her, showering sparks. The espresso machine hissed violently, steam pouring out like smoke. Then, silence. The shell rolled slowly back toward her feet, stopping just before her toes. Emily backed away, breathing hard. "This isn't real," she whispered. But the wet footprints appearing on the tiles said otherwise. They moved toward her, one step at a time, until they stopped right in front of her. Then the lights flickered again, and she saw him. Elias Dawn, or what was left of him. His body was translucent, face twisted and half melted, but his eyes were sharp, alive. "You opened the door," he said, his voice low, like the hum of deep ocean currents. "You poured the cup, now I can wear again." Emily stumbled backward, grabbing a broom like it could protect her. "Stay away," she shouted. He smiled faintly. "You think I'm here for you?" His voice rippled, echoing in her skull. "No, you were only the barista. The vessel, the one who kept the coffee hot while I brewed something else." Then she saw it, faces moving beneath his skin, shifting, screaming silently. One of them was Jenna's. Emily dropped the broom and bolted toward the exit, but the door slammed shut on its own. The lights went out again. Only the faint blue glow of the conch shell illuminated the cafe. "Every face I take begins with a pour," he whispered. "That's why I chose your hands." She screamed again, but the sound came out wrong, warped, distant, like she was underwater. The walls seemed to move, shifting, pulsing. The smell of salt and decay filled the room. Suddenly, the hum stopped. The cafe behind her looked dark, untouched, as if nothing had happened. Her phone buzzed, a notification. "Thanks for the refill." Days passed. Emily quit the job. She deleted her social media, stopped answering calls, and moved to a small town outside Eugene, Oregon. She thought she could leave it behind, but the nightmares followed. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the shells spinning in dark water, whispering her name. Then, one morning, she woke to a sound in her kitchen, a low rhythmic tapping. She walked in half asleep, and froze. On the counter sat a cup of coffee, black steaming. She hadn't made it. Iron, and her phone buzzed again. Another message. "It's still your shift." Emily screamed and ran out the door. She drove for hours until she reached the coast, where the gray Pacific crashed against jagged rocks. The wind howled, the sea roared, but when she stepped out of the car, everything went silent. The ocean was calm. Too calm. She walked to the edge, clutching the shell, which she had brought without realizing it. Its surface felt warm, pulsing faintly, like a heartbeat. She took a deep breath. "You want this?" "Fine," she said, and threw it into the sea. The shell vanished beneath the waves. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the water began to churn. A shape rose slowly from the depths, massive, human-like, but wrong. The outline of a face formed in the waves, eyes hollow, mouth opening wide as if to scream. The sound that came out wasn't human, it was the sound of the ocean itself, howling in rage. In the coffee shop, standing there on the cliffside, lights glowing warmly through the fog, she blinked. It was the same cafe, same counter, same chalkboard menu, even the faint hum of jazz music. And behind the counter stood Jenna. "Hey, you're late," Jenna said, smiling. Her eyes looked glassy, too bright. "We've got a big order coming in. Refills don't pour themselves," Jenna interrupted. She slid a cup across the counter. Steam rose from it, dark, heavy, oily. Jenna's smile didn't change. "We all are. Drink up." When the Coast Guard found Emily's car 2 days later, it was empty. The keys were still in the ignition. The sand around the vehicle was covered in hundreds of wet footprints, none leading back to shore. Locals began reporting strange things after that. A new cafe appeared at the edge of the beach, open only at night. They said the place smelled faintly of salt and coffee, and if you looked closely, you could see movement behind the fogged glass, faces pressed against it, mouthing words you couldn't hear. On the next morning, his boat washed up on shore. Empty. Weeks, years, the pour never ends. He pocketed it as a souvenir and took it home. That night, his wife said she heard whispering from the kitchen. When she went to check, there was a cup of steaming coffee waiting on the table, and the faint sound of the ocean, humming from inside the shell.